So what is Teneriffe lace? Teneriffe lace is a needle-made lace, needle and thread, but it does need some kind of a form upon which that you lay down the foundation threads, the radial warp threads, foundation threads, upon which two stitches, either a weaving, this is an example of weaving right here, or a knot stitch. Every motif will have at least an outer row of knotted stitch to form it into an actual piece of lace, standalone medallion. The medallions are, in this case, for instance, this is a single medallion, single motif. Then they can be put together into a doily, or a piece of lace, a bigger piece of lace. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of the same size can be put together and formed a very simple motif. Or in this case, we have one bigger piece that I did a little bit more work with the weaving, and then what I call satellite motifs, these 8 satellite motifs, and then I stitch them together. So this is very typical of a Teneriffe lace piece from the island of Teneriffe, the Canary Islands, in that it's 2 colors. It's white and it's ecru. Teneriffe lace is physically done by laying down a warp thread, what's called a radial warp, because it radiates out and across and around, onto some form of a loom or form. The simplest thing you can do is to take a simple pattern, put it onto a base, in this case a piece of styrofoam, and then use pins at the points on the pattern, and then the warp thread, the foundation, or what I call the warp thread in continuing with like a weaving technique, is laid down by running it around the threads, the pins, to lay down the warp. Another form that I use is this, what's called the slotted loom. I call it a slotted loom. It's based on the old Thessa forms from the early 1900s of German origin. And this is it slots and it uses this, in this case, burgundy thread to hold down the warp threads on the front so that the thread can be laid down onto the form in the pattern. Then afterwards, these threads are cut away. They're just waist threads or anchor threads to release the lace, but that's the last step. Once the foundation or warp thread is laid onto the loom or form, then the thread is cut away from the ball enough to stitch with, and it's put onto a needle. And from here on out, it's true needle lace. There are 2 stitches used in Teneriffe lace, a weaving stitch and a knotted stitch. The weaving stitch is illustrated here, in which we're kind of partitioning off 1/6 of this hexagon pattern. It's over under, and it forms a woven or cloth-like appearance. The other one is a knotted stitch, illustrated up here on the edge. This is an illustration of a knotted or weaving stitch being used. Here I am trying out different stitch types and patterns, seeing what I like. Again, this is unstitched, these are stitched in weaving stitch. Teneriffe lace will always have an outer row of knot stitch. If you are familiar with embroidery, this is also called a coral knot. But the outer row of knotted stitch is a construction technique in all pieces and will include a thread from one slot and the adjacent slot. Knot those together. When this is taken off, after it's done all the way around, it will be a cohesive piece of lace. The final step would be then to remove the lace from the loom. And in the case of this slotted loom, I would just cut the basting cords in back here, cut those away, and remove, then that lace would come away from the form. And the only thing would be left would be this starting thread end would need to be woven into the center weaving area on the back side. I can't do that until it's off of the loom to finish it off. And that concludes all the basics of Teneriffe lace. Some simple examples of Teneriffe lace include this little flower, in which we have a little bit of weaving to separate out to make it look like there's 6 petals. And you can see we've got the center weaving area, the weaving area of the petals stitch design, and then the outer knotted row to form the lace. The heart has the center weaving area, of course, and it's got 1, 2 rows or rounds of knot stitch, and then an outer knot stitch round that forms it into lace. Just a few examples of the simplicity of Teneriffe lace. These are small pieces that can be made up quickly with playing with colors, and are included in the Needle Lace Arts complete kit line available at needlelacearts.com.